followed by the consent agenda. We have consideration of approval of minutes from February 24th and 27th. Let's see, I believe the minutes from the 24th are in your binders, but the 27th did not make it in. Let's see. I'm getting a little bit of a lag, so that's why this sounds a little bit jagged. I'll just carry on. Then we'll have report update and action items, including consideration of approval of submitting the Morocco Statement of Interest, SOI, to the MSBA, an update on the Winchester High School gymnasium and flooring projects, consideration of the 25-26 McCall Program of Studies, the FY26 budget update, and consideration of the 25-26 school year calendar. We will have to table that one. We'll talk about that more when we get there. And then consideration of school committee meeting dates, anticipated future agenda items, then next meetings, an executive session, purpose 3 of which is to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, as the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the committee, and then adjournment. Let's see. All right, so we will go back to public comment. And if you are here for public comment this evening, please raise your digital hand. And I will have Dr. Matthews. Actually, I can't see my screen very well, so
I'm
just
here. I'm here.
Okay.
I will be able to get on video in just 2 minutes because I've arrived, so it's no problem. I can happily
you can keep time.
You have 3 people in line, Madam Chair, for public comment. Sandy George,
Thank you.
Laura Conti, and Alyssa Torella.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll go ahead and read the little preamble. Public comment shall be for a period of 20 minutes. Any citizen wishing to speak before the committee shall identify themselves by name and address and shall speak for no longer than 3 minutes. All remarks will be addressed through the chair of the meeting. Public comment is not a discussion, debate, or dialogue between citizens and the committee. It's a citizen's opportunity to express their opinion on issues of school committee business. Written comments that are longer than 3 minutes may be presented to the committee before or after the meeting for the committee members' review and consideration at an appropriate time. And that address is schoolcommittee@winchesterps.org. Also, as we're in a remote meeting, we just request that speakers turn on their cameras when they are brought into our meeting.
Thank you. I would suggest we, based on those 3 hands are still there, I would suggest we maybe start with Sandy George.
Please.
If someone can, would you like me to, I think Dr. Hackett needs to do the elevating, is that?
I've promoted
her. Oh, Mr. Marin, thank you.
Hi, everyone. Can you see and hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Here, I'm going to mute myself because I think I have an echo.
Hi, my name is Sandy George, and I live at 8 Churchill Road. I have 3 children in Winchester Public Schools, grades 4, 6, and 8, and I serve as president of the Morocco Elementary School Parents Association, or MESPA. Earlier this week, I shared the letter I read to the Select Board, along with results from a MESPA staff survey conducted this fall. With the rebuild still years away, MESPA created the survey to identify short-term improvements that could make Morocco more functional and supportive for staff. I hope you've had a chance to review it. I've shared it with all of you and see both the daily challenges our staff face and the incredible can-do spirit they bring every day. Tonight, I want to highlight a number of urgent actions. 1, electrical fixes. Please use the remaining Morocco Life Extension funds to resolve electrical issues at Morocco, so staff can run 2 microwaves at lunch or plug in laptops during meetings without blowing circuits. 2, rodent control. Fully fund and fast track sealing rodent entry points to Morocco. The culvert work will take time, but mice shouldn't be a part of our daily experience at the school. 3rd, carpets. Please address the dismal carpet situation in all grade levels, either through proper remediation in affected rooms or by providing area rugs to replace the current duct-taped solutions. Fourth, paint. Please accelerate work orders to paint the staff bathroom, classrooms, hallways, and bulletin boards. Small updates like these boost morale and really show support. And finally, basic maintenance. Let's address the remaining staff concerns from the survey, things like missing and moldy sinks, broken blinds and windows that are stuck open, letting snow in during the winter, non-functioning AC bringing temps in the library to the high 80s, and other temporary, again, duct-taped fixes that deserve permanent solutions. Now, looking ahead, here's what's in motion. Last week, Leslie West visited Parkhurst and identified a significant amount of furniture that will be redirected to Morocco. Fantastic news that helps with the furniture-related comments from our survey. MESPA is also now working with Leslie and Morocco staff to compile a room-by-room list of concerns and needs to get over to you, Andrew, sorry. And since Monday, we've already seen momentum start to build around some of these fixes. Thank you. Let's keep that momentum going. MESPA is ready and eager to keep working with you to make Morocco a better place for our staff and students. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Sandy. We appreciate it. I think
Thanks,
the
Sandy.
next person we have in line is Laura Conti.
Hi. Thank you. Good evening to the school committee. My name is Laura Conti. I reside at 4 Highland View Ave. I have 3 children at Morocco, and I'm really excited tonight that you'll be considering submitting the statement of interest for the new Morocco to the MSBA. And I hope that, like the select board did on Monday, that you will approve moving forward with that process. Knowing that the rebuild is at least 5 years away at best. And as you know, parents are speaking up on behalf of students and staff about several urgent facility issues that can't wait. So I'm not going to rehash what Sandy has so eloquently said. We did go and speak with the select board. They've committed to working with town departments and DPW to make sure things are on track, like painting. So we're thrilled to hear all of that. One thing that I learned that I wanted to ask about, and I know you can't respond now, but I hope that you will follow up with me or with the principal, is that I believe there was some funding through capital planning that was supposed to cover some carpet remediation that was then pulled, I believe, by the school department sometime in August or September. And at that time, it was said, don't worry, that's still going to happen. It'll be funded another way. As far as I know, that hasn't happened, and I'm just wondering why that hasn't happened and what we can do to get that back on track. I believe it was maybe from a revolving account, from rental income. So I would just appreciate after this meeting some follow-up on what happened, how we can get back on track. And then with the issues that Sandy has mentioned, especially, with things that need fixes right away with rodents and such, what of that can be funded within existing revolving funds within the school committee? And if it can't be resolved in existing funds, what can we do? How can we support you to find other funding sources through other channels? So I look forward to collaborating with you, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Laura. We appreciate it. And our last public comment will come from Alyssa Loring-Torella.
Oh, there it is. Sorry if it's very noisy. I have a jackhammer conveniently right outside my window right now. My name is Alyssa Loring-Torella. I live at 30 Florence Street. I have a first grader at Morocco and 2 younger children who will be at Morocco in the coming years. I'm very thankful for the work that's already been done to again put together a statement of interest for the MSBA for Morocco, and that so many thoughtful details were included in the SOI. But our reality is that, as Laura and Sandy said, Morocco needs a lot of work, and it's not going to get exponentially better over the next 5 years until the earliest new Morocco can happen. We have stained old carpeting covering asbestos floor tiles that is in places duct taped down. We have portable classrooms nearing the end of their useful lives as they were installed in 2008. We don't have a sprinkler system. We have original 1960s single pane windows, many of which don't open, plus structural concerns for the building, including extensive cracks in the foundation, which led to a massive rodent problem this winter. And we're in a place where we need to decide what we can fix so the building doesn't fall down around our kids while we wait for a new construction project to start. We've known about some of these issues since the 2017 Master Facilities Plan uncovered them. And while we are glad that some have been addressed, like the electrical system upgrades, 8 years later, we're still waiting on many of these items. In 2021, the select board chair described Morocco as being on life support. And while the 2021 Morocco Life Extension Plan addressed some of the electrical, heating, and other needs, it was only meant to extend the life of the building until a replacement in 2028, which obviously we are quickly nearing. Our incredible teachers and the kids deserve better than a building riddled with mice, leaks, dirty carpets, windows that won't close or open, and more. And I urge the school committee to vote to submit the SOI for Morocco to the MSBA and to consider and plan for how to replace Morocco, even if it's not chosen as a near-term project with MSBA. Thank you all for your work on bringing a new Morocco to fruition.
Thank you, Alyssa. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
I think we might have one more hand for public comment from Chris Nixon.
Okay.
You guys hear me okay?
We can.
Yes.
Thanks.
I'm going to give you, if you will allow me, I'm keeping the camera off because I'm driving on Storrow Drive. But I appreciate the opportunity to address you tonight. I know we'll talk more later in the meeting on some of the capital projects when we get to it. I just wanted to respond to some of the comments that we heard tonight, similar to what we heard at the select board table when I was there with Karen Monday night. I appreciate the frustration that the parents are voicing. It's not new. It's been there for years, even when I was a Morocco parent. But just to be very clear, I don't think it's helpful to talk about the potential for Morocco falling down. It won't. Morocco's structure is steel frame, fully reinforced CMU. The brick is a veneer. It was identified back in 2017 as having some issues, and again in 2020, and it was actually repaired at that time. We put millions of dollars into the electrical system, the roof, mason repair, as well as to replace the boilers. There's work that needs to be done. I spent about 30 minutes there walking the building yesterday morning. I could find literally no opening in the masonry or foundation where mice would be getting into the building. I appreciate there are mice in the building, and there may be some reasons why that's happening, but I just want to be careful that we're not.
Mr. Nixon, you faded out.
Appreciate it. Okay.
No, it's glitched. We did a comprehensive architectural and engineering evaluation of Morocco. We identified nearly $9 million in project cost of needed repairs and replacements, including some of the very items that we've heard about from Morocco parents tonight. But the school committee, as you know, does not pull the trigger on debt exclusion overrides. We had to develop some consensus with the select board and even input from the finance committee. And so along with the Morocco culvert work that was much needed, as well as the town's appetite to go for a debt exclusion override for the new lynch, the most support that we could find was $3.6 million. So I don't want Morocco parents to feel like we intended or we particularly wanted to turn our eyes away from the many other needs at the school, but we were limited in our funding. While there certainly is a pile of free cash today, and one could say perhaps that is a source that could be tapped for many of the items that Morocco parents are frustrated by,
It's no secret that we're going to be drawing on free cash in some measure to close our FY26 budget. Winchester does not have the deep commercial tax base that other communities benefit from. And so this is why our long-term capital planning strategies can sometimes be so very challenging. And even conversations around carpet that would seem simple are not actually resolved year after year. So I appreciate all of the frustrations that I heard Monday night. I appreciate the ones I've heard tonight. I'm sure the school committee, cares a lot about these concerns and won't dismiss them. But I certainly want our community to understand the millions of building. And I guess my last comment, Madam Chair, would be our commitment to the town back in the Morocco said we would have a new school underway sometime 2030. I think of 2030 as the hard stop. We don't need to wait until 2030 to get going on a new Morocco. So let's not assume that a new Morocco has to happen with the MSBA and it's 5 years away. I'd love to continue that community conversation about what a new Morocco can be and how we can get there, even if it means funding it on our own. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Any?
Chair, I don't see any further hands raised at this time, so I think we're probably safe to close public comment.
Thank you. I will close public comment then. And we will move on to the consent agenda. So this is consideration of approval of minutes, including the February 24th minutes and the February 27th minutes. As we'd indicated earlier, the February 27th minutes did not make it into the binder. And if there is a motion towards
I
the
would
February
be happy
24th
to
minutes.
do that if it helps. Madam Chair, I would move that we approve the consent agenda consisting of the approval of minutes from the February 24th, 2025 school committee meeting.
I'd second that. Or sure, either way.
Thank you. And all in favor, we'll do a roll call vote. So Mr. Hopcroft,
Aye.
Dr. Matthews,
Aye.
Ms. Bergstrom,
Aye.
Ms. Minyarji.
Aye.
Thank you so much. And the minutes are approved and the vote is unanimous. All right, we'll move on to the report update and action items, beginning with the consideration of approval of submitting the Morocco Statement of Interest to the Massachusetts State Building Authority. You've had in your packets from Mr. Marin a copy of the final draft of the Statement of Interest. This went to the Select Board on Monday night of this week, and the Select Board voted unanimously to submit to sign off and submit the Morocco Statement of Interest with this very long and detailed motion that we now have on the screen. And I guess if there are any questions or discussion, we can open it up, or I can
So Madam
cede
Chair,
this to Mr. Marin.
What I was going to suggest is I will read the motion, and then we can go ahead and have discussion on the motion after it's seconded, if there is any, but I'm happy to be the one to read this out.
Please go right ahead.
All right, so I would like to move that having convened in an open meeting on April 10th, 2025, prior to the SOI submission closing date, the School Committee of Winchester, in accordance with its charter, bylaws, and ordinances, has voted to authorize the superintendent to submit to the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or MSBA, the Statement of Interest form dated April 3rd, 2025 for the Morocco Elementary School located at 33 Bates Road, Winchester, Massachusetts, which describes and explains the following deficiencies in the priority categories for which an application may be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the future. Number 4, prevention of severe overcrowding expected to result from increased enrollment. And number 5, replacement, renovation, or modernization of school facility systems such as roofs, windows, boilers, heating, and ventilation systems to increase energy conservation and decrease energy-related costs in a school facility, and hereby further specifically acknowledges that by submitting the Statement of Interest form, the Massachusetts School Building Authority in no way guarantees the acceptance or the approval of an application, the awarding of a grant, or any other funding commitment from the Massachusetts School Building Authority or commits the town of Winchester to filing an application for funding with the Massachusetts School Building Authority.
Second.
I will open it up to discussion.
I'll just make a comment. I didn't know if
Please,
Mr.
Okay.
I didn't know if Mr. Maron had anything to say, but obviously it's very timely and important that we move forward on the Morocco rebuild as we've heard from public comment and we've known since before the Lynch building. I just wanted to comment that I appreciated the detail in here, in particular around sustainability and decarbonization and the strength of our community's commitment to its climate action plan. I think plays a key role and strengthens this application quite a bit. So I appreciate all the work from all the people behind the scenes who pulled this together, because it's not a small amount of work. I know you have a lot on your plates. So
And I just wanted to say really briefly, because I see that our three public commenters are still present in the room, as well as others who either are now or have been involved with the Morocco community over the years. I'm absolutely thrilled as someone who lives in the Morocco neighborhood to have this moving forward, understanding that probably neither of my children will benefit from it, despite the fact that one of them's still a year away from even entering kindergarten. But maybe the last year if we move super fast. But this is just a wonderful thing, I think, for the community to know that the school, which has been so long delayed. I've said this many times before. When we bought our house in 2018, we were told that there was no question Morocco would be rebuilt in time for our kids to go to school there. And obviously that has not proved to be the case. And with all the deficiencies that were identified, both in the photos that are in our packet tonight, as well as the presentation at the select board meeting on Monday, I'm just thrilled to know that we're going to actually be able to hopefully begin the process of taking this on. So thanks to the parents who advocated, thanks to the community members who've spoken up in support of this. And I look forward to hopefully having at least some kind of path forward, if we are lucky enough to be selected by MSBA.
Thank you. Ms. Minyarji?
Thank you. I'm now the former co-chair of PISC. And while working with all the PTOs in town, where they were working on fundraising for books and field trips and teacher appreciation, and Morocco does all of that. MESPA, that was represented tonight, does all of that. And in addition, they fundraise for things like asbestos remediation. So yes, thank you for speaking up. I support this SOI, but I also just have a question about a few issues that were raised in public comment. And Dr. Hackett, is this something that we can talk to Beth or work with the town manager about understanding where the life extension funds are coming from and how we can work with those funds to get some of these issues addressed now? Or
So yes, is a short answer. An even shorter answer is that Andrew and I attended a meeting today
okay.
for that very discussion. So I know the town is looking into it. And yeah, I know the town's looking into it. So the presentation to the select board was taken seriously, and that chunk of money would be very helpful just to also come back to the carpet removal and placement. We've had conversations, and in fact talked to members of VESPA about this. Our plan has been and will continue to be to participate in that process, but the issue that we have is that it's about $20,000 to $25,000 potentially per room. So we have to assume that there's asbestos tile underneath the carpet that exists, and that when we take up that carpet, because when we do this kind of stuff, it seems to be how it goes around here, that we might damage the tile. So we would need to go into an asbestos abatement. That cannot be done when students are in school. So we've been targeting summer, but our funds are limited. So the best, most efficient way to do that would be if there is an infusion of money that multiple rooms can be done at the same time. Because once you have people come in the stage to do that, do all the negative air and all the and then the testing before and after, it's just more expensive, and you keep bringing them back for one room at a time. And Mr. Mayor and I are also we'll be joining the conversation with Principal West and and staff too, so that we can really develop a priority list that, because that may not be the biggest priority. You know, everything's a priority, but at some point we'll know what the money might look like from the life extension funds. So I appreciate the question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bergstrom?
Thank you to Mr. Marin and Dr. Hackett for having the SOI ready and prepared for us. I think, you know, school committee had made an intention to last spring to have this submitted by this spring. So as probably the only remaining member of the school committee from the prior master plan and walking through Morocco with Senator Lewis and Mike Day in 2017, to having a time when we had submitted both Morocco and Lynch to the MSBA, understanding that we did see both of those schools as a priority, and then eventually having to make the difficult choice to put one building ahead of the other. It is super exciting to be part of a process like that and to get to the point where we can see the fruition of all of that work that has come before. I echo Stephanie's comments about the building. I know that the select board, capital planning, and the school committee walked through it, and that was the beginning of the warrant article for the life extension plan. And I am also curious to know about any remaining funds as part of that account, and if there is a way that we can continue to access them. There was certainly an intention by the boards at that time to use that money to extend Morocco until it could be replaced. And I am ready to commit my own time to doing whatever we can to be able to see if we can use those funds to do the work that needs to be done there and finish out on that commitment.
Thank you. Dr. Hackett?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If all other school committee members are done, I don't want to. Okay, there's no way we can put this in front of you without thanking Chris Nixon. He did the yeoman's work on this, as only Chris can do, with the details that are excruciatingly accurate. He really put the SOI together. He knows the building inside and out, and obviously very supportive of submitting. And I just to thank the committee, because if you remember, it was I think February of last year where you took a vote, or maybe it was even earlier, where you did take a public vote with the intention of committing to the SOI submission. So this is a milestone. You know, I've done MSBA projects before. You just really don't know where you'll end up in that queue. So while you know many districts, including this one, have had the experience of having to go in 2 and 3 times, I've had the experience of going in once and being selected the first time in. So not because, but I'm sure my writing was dazzling as part of that process, but I think it was more about the condition of the building and just where you line up in the competition. That's really what it is. So it will very much depend on what else is being submitted by other districts, and you know, it'll be in the elementary school category. So we'll see. But I'm hopeful. Thank you.
Dr. Hackett, Ms. Bolognese, if you just indulge me for a minute to also thank Mr. Nixon for the original master planning process that brought these buildings to a plan and to an intention as well. Without having a solid master plan for our building projects, it would have been really difficult for us as a committee to articulate our needs and the condition of our buildings, and to make a plan to make this happen. So I just thank Mr. Nixon for having that master plan initially in 2017 as well.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, may I make a comment if I'm still live?
Oh, you are still alive, although I was about to say something, but go ahead.
Well, I want to say thank you for the kind words from Ms. Bergstrom and
Mhm.
Dr. Hackett. But on those notes about next
I was going to
steps,
pile on that too.
well, I'll shut up in a minute, and you can heap all kinds of praise on me. I appreciate it. But it's important just for the committee and the community to understand next steps. Any invitation to a district that is submitting this week, any invitation into eligibility is not expected until November, maybe late November. And then the eligibility process would begin 2 or 3 months later, and that's a 9-month process. So it's sort of like being told you're going to be invited to a party, but it's basically a year away. So as you all know, it's a lengthy process with the MSBA, but we won't really hear anything officially until late fall in this round. And then the other point that I would love to make, just piggybacking on a comment Dr. Hackett just made, with respect to other commitments of the MSBA, for those who are not aware, they have partnered with Brockton on a new high school. I believe it's Brockton. And that project has, I think, ended feasibility, and the estimate came in at over $750 million. That's a project for which the MSBA has calculated a reimbursement rate of around 80%. That community has to figure out whether they're going to take that deal. It is a tremendous deal, but it also represents a significant commitment on the part of the MSBA with the resources that they have available. The high schools are expensive. I think that's the point Dr. Hackett was making, and in a way it helps us that we're looking to partner on an elementary school. Those are the cheaper of the three, followed by a middle school and then the high school. So there's a tremendous commitment for another community that obviously will limit their resources. The other thing I want to make the committee aware of, as you may recall, following COVID, the MSBA suspended the green repair program, in part because of the significant escalation in construction costs that were being seen throughout the Commonwealth. Many districts actually kind of complained about that because they were not looking to build new schools. They were looking for roofs and for windows and for heating plants. So they've actually reactivated that program. So that's another draw on their resources. I'm sharing this with the committee because I want to remind you that in each of our 3 projects with the MSBA, Winchester's reimbursement rate has actually decreased. So this will definitely want to be a part of our community conversation, particularly if we're not successful in this round with the MSBA. Yeah, so I just wanted you guys to be aware of that.
Thank you. Dr. Hackett or Mr. Nixon, is there a point at which we know how many applicants there are, or does this all just come out later in the year in November, as Mr. Nixon was saying?
We generally, I don't believe they publish the list of school systems that have submitted for a statement of interest. They do publish the list who are invited to eligibility, which is the
Right.
first step in that process.
Okay. Yes, I think that was right at the point where I had just been on the committee for a few months, back in 2019, when Winchester was, when the Lynch School was invited into eligibility with the MSBA. So it was very exciting, and I appreciate more so now, just looking back, how many times it took to get to that eligibility acceptance or acceptance to eligibility, and the time and effort that it's taken over these years to get to this point where the Lynch School is about to reopen in the fall. So I think it's an exciting opportunity for Morocco. I also remember talking in the last year and a half about submitting the SOI in the winter timeframe of this year. So it's exciting that we have this on before the committee at last. So looking forward to good things. So
I just want to make sure we don't forget to take a vote.
I was going to say the same thing.
Well, yes. Did we have a second? I guess we had a
That would be really
second.
disappointing.
Yeah.
I did hear the
I'll
second.
second it
so.
again if we need to have
Thank
one on
you.
file.
Yes, thank you. So all in favor, and we'll do a roll call vote again. Ms. Bergstrom,
Aye.
Mr. Hopcroft,
Aye.
Dr. Matthews,
Aye.
and Ms. Minyarji.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, and the vote is unanimous for submitting the Morocco Statement of Interest to the MSBA.
It will be submitted tomorrow through their antiquated system.
Oh, boy. And thank you
you,
again
everybody.
for all the hard work. Mr. Nixon, Dr. Hackett, Mr. Marin, yeoman's work, just as Dr. Hackett was saying. Thank you. All right. We will move on to an update on the WHS gymnasium and flooring projects. And I believe we still have Mr. Nixon here to assist us with this.
We do, and just before, Madam Chair, just to kind of set the table a little bit, as you know, there will be warrant articles and Springtown meeting related to capital projects as well. So I've asked, and Mr. Nixon has agreed to give us an update on building related articles that will be on the warrant too.
And this is a memorandum that you have in your binders now. So
Oh, Tom, we lost him now.
oh no. Well, he did say that he was getting back to the house.
No, no, I'm
Okay.
here,
Oh,
but
there
I
he
was
is.
I was actually going to ask if Mr. Marin or Dr. Hackett can look for me in Zoom because I'm going to do this from the laptop since I got home. You hear me okay, guys?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Nice to see you all again. Okay, so I don't know who's controlling the memo, so maybe if that's, is that Mr. Marin or Dr. Hackett, as I talk, maybe just sort of slowly scroll through it. This is my usual just-in-time delivery, given some information that was breaking this morning on some of these projects. So I'll just do a quick rundown with you. I get to the gym here very quickly, but maybe to kick it off with some good news under Article 50, Motion 1, each year, you know, when we do have unexpended funds on capital projects, there's a reversion back to the Building or Capital Stabilization Fund. And so this year, there's really a substantial one. I'll remind you guys that the McCall facade restoration and a lot of the flat work in front of the 1932 building that was funded by town meeting at around $860,000. That included the new balustrades at the areaways and so forth that were really in terrible condition and presented, frankly, some safety issues. That work was all completed this past year and substantially under budget to the tune of almost $137,000. So we're going to be actually sending that money back to capital, and we're happy about that. And not to be outdone, the McCall HVAC project had $200 left over, so we're piling that on as well, just for good measure. There's only 3 projects that are contributing reversions, but substantially it's all coming from school projects. So it's good just to remind ourselves in the community that they don't all come in over budget. So that's welcome news. Just want to make you guys aware of that. If we scroll down a little bit then to the gym, these are photos actually I took. These are just hours old. Of the gym. So, you know, the broken bleachers were disassembled. For those who are high school parents or live adjacent to the high school, you know, the dumpsters have been filling up every morning as they're hauling all of this out of the building. We've removed a couple of windows actually, so they can get some hoists up there to get the big stuff out. All the equipment's gone. They're actually using a machine. It looks kind of like peeling an orange. We've got a machine that weighs, you know, probably 800 or 900 pounds with a sharp blade on it, and it literally just comes and carves up the floor. So you are seeing the old rubberized floor, the sponge underneath it, and that green is sort of that mastic, and it all just gets peeled right up. About half of it is already gone. And then once it's all gone and we get the concrete clean, SGH, you guys will recall, that's our forensic engineer working on the concrete project at the high school. They're going to come in and they will sound this floor just to be sure we don't have any structural issues on this slab. This is a great opportunity to bring them in because with the floor up, we can see it. I haven't seen anything myself that I'm concerned about, but as you can tell in the photograph on the right, there's a lot of mastic still left on the floor. So it's early days, but I'd say about half the floor is up, and it's just exciting to see the progress. If I move down then to what's next, so on the concrete project, so here we're talking about that deterioration, right? So carbonation from below in the crawl space, and the application of the surface applied corrosion inhibitor, that's the SACI. So this is something that town meeting funded last fall to the tune of $845,000. I want to remind the committee what that was for. That was for the actual work, to bring in a contractor and to stop that carbonation from below. But in addition, that 845 also covered some design and engineering fees from SGH because they also are continuing to develop the bid set for the topside work. Remind you guys that the topside, that contamination was actually from sulfides, not from carbonation. So we got $845,000 in funding. And if you scroll down here to the second paragraph, you'll see, so the bids were opened last week. The low bidder is a very reputable firm. They came in at $698,000. So that's actually higher than what we had estimated. That is obviously well within the 845 that was funded at fall. But remember, the 845 was not only for the SACI work in the crawl space, but some additional progress topside. So because we have, and that article, that motion was written in a way that the dollars would be fungible, if you will, between the crawl space and the topside work. So we are able to award this contract, and we're hoping to do it in the next few days so that that work can get scheduled and can start. However, because this work did come in higher than we had expected, capital planning on the recommendation of management, I'm very pleased to say unanimously approved at a recent meeting an increase from $355,000 to $450,000 for this coming spring town meeting. This is Article 16, Motion 1. So this is a budget that we had actually developed to handle the construction on the top side, those topside repairs, which we were hoping could be done over the summer, and we still have our fingers crossed. We had estimated we would need an additional $355,000. Given how the bids have come in, we have about a $66,000 or $67,000 gap. I will be very direct with you guys. The kind of the tariff phobia is absolutely affecting bids, not just in Winchester, but in the community where I work. Things are really becoming quite volatile. Folks are getting spooked. And so we think that this is really an appropriate adjustment. So we're basically adding $95,000 to what we thought would be a $355,000 request. But as I said, it was unanimous. And so I would hope that the school committee would consider supporting that motion. You obviously supported the larger request in the fall. So then if we just keep scrolling, some update here on the Morocco culvert. We've actually heard about the culvert tonight during public comment related to the mice. There's no doubt in my mind that I'm sure the culvert is largely responsible for spooking the mice out of the bushes. But to replay some history here, the Morocco Life Extension Plan, when it went before the voters as a debt exclusion override, it was actually packaged with the Morocco culvert. So some of you may remember that was actually one question. The yes on one question was the 3.6 for Morocco and over $10 million for the Morocco culvert. So that work has been impacted by some existing conditions. The work traverses an MBTA right-of-way. There is an existing culvert there. The site has been mobilized. Some early sort of pre-construction work has been done. And then based on what they discovered with the existing culvert, and again, it's in a right-of-way that the MSBA has some jurisdiction over, they felt strongly about some new requirements regarding how we protect the existing culvert and lining the existing culvert and a few other elements of the project that basically add to the project scope. They extend the schedule, and they actually require us to go back and I don't want to say start from scratch on permitting, but there's an element to this project that needs to go through a permitting process. All in all, the financial impact of this new information is around $2.6 million. What I will also remind the committee is I think some of you well know when you go out for a debt exclusion override to the voters, the language is actually quite vague, even with respect to the full amount. So there is some hope that this additional cost might become excluded from Prop 2.5. Management and the board have made a formal request of DOR, and they may hear in the next day or two what that ruling is. If it's not a favorable ruling, we still need to get this project done, and we got to find $2.6 million. I'm certainly not expecting it's going to be free cash, given how it appears we're going to be relying on free cash to stretch FY26. So if it's borrowed, it's borrowed. It just means that the debt service will have to be accounted for in a different way. It means that it will no longer be excluded debt. But I don't want to get ahead of ourselves because we're sort of waiting on the DOR ruling. But my point to the committee, as you see in my paragraph, why on earth should the school committee care? Well, because once it's completed, the Morocco culvert will not only complete, I think, like an 18 or 19-year stretch of flood mitigation projects in Winchester, but it will bring a substantial portion of the Morocco school site out of our 100-year floodplain. That is really significant when we think about any new Morocco. Think of it as sort of giving us a larger canvas that we can work with. I would encourage the committee to think about taking a favorable action recommendation on this. Because of the nature of this interaction with DOR, I don't actually even have an article to share with you tonight. I can't tell you what article number it is, but it will be on the warrant, and I'm sure you will see it soon, as well as a motion once the board gets the information that they need from DOR. Then the last thing, which is actually related to this, is the under Article 16, Motion 4, this is a capital request that we gave everybody a heads up on in the fall, and that is to fully fund the remapping of Winchester. So FEMA actually establishes our floodplain maps. We've talked about this as literally sort of the it's crossing the T and dotting the I when the work is complete. Once the Morocco culvert is finished, for us to officially have revised floodplain maps, we have to start the process with FEMA. And there's a cost for that. It's $175,000. And by the way, that's not just for the Morocco culvert. That is literally a townwide reassessment. And so that comes under Article 16, Motion 4. I would certainly encourage the school committee to recommend favorable action on this one as well, because without it, even if we did the culvert work, we still have an outdated map and we are very restricted in kind of what we have to work with for a new Morocco. And then just as a matter of kind of parliamentary procedure, I would note to the chair and other members of the committee that typically we kind of plow through these capital motions one after the other. We do have a new moderator. I don't expect that Phil is going to stop before each motion and ask boards and committees for their input. So if the school committee wishes to recommend favorable action, you might want to do so on letterhead and just have that available to town meeting members. And certainly the moderator could let town meeting know once we take up Article 15 and 16, what disposition the school committee has towards certain motions. Anyway, that's a mouthful, and I'm happy to answer questions if there are any.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nixon. Mr. Hopcroft, you have your
Sure.
hand raised.
Well, thank you, Mr. Nixon. It's great to see you, and thank you for all the work that you're continuing to do for the town here. Um, I so I appreciate all these, and I'm actually very supportive, certainly of the reversion and these investments. I think are all important, and at this moment in time, would be very supportive of all of them. I was just curious on the when you mentioned the bids being a little bit spooked because of the tariffs, and I was wondering if you could just give a little bit more information about how that works. So if a contractor, and this is on the topside concrete at the high school, if a contractor is concerned, do they put in a say a contingency that should the steel prices or other imports increase, that our bid might go up to a certain amount, or are they just putting in high bids to cover themselves either way? And if the tariffs don't affect their supplies, they just keep the profit. I was just wondering how that worked, if you could explain that.
That's a great question. I think different contractors are responding to this in different ways, Mr. Hopcroft. I think for a large, complicated project with a sort of a wide spectrum of scope, take for instance the Lynch Elementary School, we do have materials that cross borders, multiple borders actually, and Lynch is impacted, by the way. So the playground equipment for the new Lynch, as of a couple of days ago, I believe is still sitting on the Canadian border. It has certainly been held up for at least a couple of weeks, waiting for somebody to pay a tariff, and it's a substantial 5-figure tariff. So we're working with the contractor to resolve that, but the Lynch project is not alone. I think for a lot of contractors, they're simply accustomed, Mr. Hopcroft, to going to their supplier and getting the products that they need, and they don't really think twice about where they come from. So there may be materials that have a common brand name that are known to every contractor and every trade in the country, but they don't pause to think that it actually comes from Alberta, right? Or Toronto, or maybe even from south of the border. So as some certainly products do. So there certainly is some whiplash. This week is a perfect example, right? Even for those who can follow this and understand what the quote unquote trade policy is, it seems like it changes 24 hours later. So I think this is becoming really fatiguing for many contractors. And I think it depends on the nature of the work, how impactful this is. But to my point about how the Capital Planning Committee, on the recommendation of management, is treating this phase 2 work, I would note that the topside work involves many more different kinds of materials than the crawl space does. If you think about it, the crawl space is really just, it's the chemical, it's the surface applied corrosion inhibitor, and it's the labor. On the top side, we're talking about a lot of different finish materials, wall materials, floor materials, studs and all that kind of stuff. So I guess that's my best answer. I think contractors are just becoming spooked.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the work, and I know you guys know what you're doing, and obviously, everyone, I think in Winchester, would like to. The work needs to get done, so unfortunately, there may be a premium that has to be paid, and it's just reality. But it would be nice if there was a way to, cover that should that contingency happen, but pay the lower price if it doesn't happen. And so you guys are the ones, or contractors are the ones you guys are dealing with that. But I appreciate the extra information. So thank you.
And by the way, we do have a contingency on this work, and we are carrying that contingency going forward. So we did not say, let's take the contingency now so we can reduce our ask. So we have the same sort of safety net going into phase 2 as what we had planned for with the 355.
Great. Well, it's important work. So thank you.
Yep.
With the high school gym floor, could you just remind the committee and the community, like, when does the work take place? That looks like a lot of, well, it's a giant space, or having been in there for games and things. So is that during the day? Is it after school hours?
Oh, it's largely during the day. There may be some activities that are happening during school hours. I actually stopped on my way to work this morning and took these pictures, and they were already hard at work just pulling more up. And the electrical contractor was there, kind of calculating where the rough end needed to be for some of these devices. This work is going to continue through the spring. There was some hope that the floor would be in, maybe early summer, but there is still an awful lot of equipment to come into this space as well and to be assembled. So, our hard stop is we want it to be ready for kids for the start of school in the fall. And let's not forget that once the beautiful floor comes in, it goes through a pretty lengthy finishing process. Many different layers are applied to not only build it up and make it look nice, but ensure that it's going to wear well for many years to come. And then I will be sure that the EFPBC will work with Dr. Hackett, Mr. Marin, and Mr. Lawson to be sure we come up with a regular maintenance program for this floor. A floor of the type we're putting in, and given how we're finishing it, should last us easily 4 or 5 seasons, but then we need to be really sure that we're going in and refinishing it appropriately. And that's how we can reasonably expect to get at least 40 years out of this floor.
Thank you. And noise-wise, is it fairly contained in that area? I know it's up on the third floor.
I think
but
that's a
was-
great question for Mr. Marin, who works in the building, because
Oh,
if
yes.
there's been complaints, he might have heard about it. I will say the machinery that they're using to literally carve up the floor is very quiet, very, very quiet, for that activity specifically.
Yeah, I agree. I'll add it's been very well managed so far. We haven't really received any complaints. It is sort of separated from a lot of the main learning areas of the high school. What has changed is that the gym classes that have usually been in there are now kind of displaced throughout the school using hallways or the LG space or outside now in the good weather, which is good.
That's great. That's great that the noise is somewhat mitigated. Having a basement renovation project going on right now, there's a lot of noise in here. And I think one of our public commenters also mentioned lots of noise outside from construction. So,
I'd
oh
just
boy.
like to thank Mr. Nixon for being here and suggest that we add those items, Madam Chair,
That will
to
be,
warrant article approval.
yep,
That'll be in
going
our
forward for town meeting.
pre-town meeting meetings, right, Ms. Bergstrom?
Exactly.
That is right. Okay.
Thanks, guys. Have a
If
good
there
night.
are no
Thank you,
further
Mr.
questions,
Nixon.
thank you very much.
Thank
Have
you.
a good evening. And now we'll move on to consideration of the 25-26 McCall Program of Studies. And I believe we have, well, I had heard that we have Principal Lynn here, but I have not looked into our
Well, you would
attendees
have
list.
Principal Lynn here. Superintendent Hackett had shot him a little bit of a text message. So if we could maybe go on to the next item, and
Okay, all right.
I'll send him a quick message.
Okay. FY26 budget update, please.
So just put this on the agenda just because, as you know, there's been some activity and action around our budget from other boards, and just wanted to also share with you, as you all know, that we've Andrew and I have been able to go out and do a little bit of a roadshow. We've been invited by different precincts. I think we have hit them all. It's been a whirlwind. And it's been just super helpful and very informative. We kind of some of the takeaways for us is that we're so close to this stuff that we forget to explain everything as clearly as we need to, because we make some assumptions, and I think some of the questions and just some of the recommendations and suggestions have been incredibly helpful. One of the things in one of these sessions, there was a question on the middle school, why we need two middle school full-time scheduling coordinators, which told me that we really didn't explain that well, and perhaps need to revisit how we describe that. I did explain that those are not full-time scheduling coordinators. Those are not even necessarily full-time individual people, but those are funds that we're holding right now in the budget to allow for us to reduce the amount of sharing that happens between the middle school and other buildings, because it really constrains the schedule in terms of trying to make some changes. So the sessions have been, again, super helpful. We will be doing a Zoom session. We're going to do it next Thursday, actually. We'll send that information out to the precincts tomorrow. And also I'll be sending information out to staff to do a couple of staff sessions. The goal is to do one over Zoom and also one in person. So obviously those are voluntary, but I want to make sure we have the opportunity to come back to staff, especially after all the time that they gave us on the survey, with the valuable information and feedback that they provided. So I just wanted to say all of that. And also, I didn't know whether or not any of you might have some additional discussion or points that you'd like to make. So thank you.
Ms. Minyarji.
Thank you, Dr. Hackett, for that budget. I was able to attend a couple of the precinct meetings, and I thought they were very valuable. And I think it's a practice that the committee should consider going forward. It was great to hear that feedback, and like there were some clarifying questions that are very important, like what is dibbles? That came up multiple times, and I think it's important just for these terms that we throw around, and that we also do a good job at effectively communicating it with our wider audience. One thing because this budget was voted 2 days before the election, I was not able to contribute to that conversation. But but I did watch that meeting, and the one thing that stood out to me were the math interventionists. 2.5. I see. I was shocked to hear and find out that we currently don't have any. And the 2.5 is a great start, but I feel like it would be a really high impact investment to go for the 5. And I'm wondering, I know that was a very lengthy conversation, and I'm not trying to rehash that conversation, but I'm just wondering if the committee would like to discuss a way that we would be able to make that happen, um, and a way to discuss looking at those 5, well, 2.5 right now that's in the budget, and an additional 2.5, how we can make that happen together. Also, while we were talking to the precincts, that was a very common theme amongst town meeting members. They're saying they were also surprised to hear about the additional the 2.5 FTEs for math, and the value of having 5, one in each building, similar to what we do with SEL and literacy. Um, I think that's something that we should consider.
Mr. Hopcroft, I see your hand is raised.
Yeah, I was just gonna jump in and comment that I think there's broad agreement across the committee of the importance of working towards 5 and the plan, I think as you saw, showed them in the following year, bringing in the other 2.5% to bring it up to a full-time person in each of the schools. But I think just given um, the fiscal constraint, at least speaking for myself, I felt like um, uh, I think it's a very important thing. I'm with you 100% on that, um, and I know there's a lot of concern with what we put on the table already. So that was at least the thinking, because I know you weren't in the back and forth with us then. But I'm with you in spirit, and if I could find a way to get us there, I'm worried about the 2.5 we're having there now.
Right.
Ms. Bergstrom.
I think, Ms. Minyarji, you actually hit on something that would, even though, I know that I had suggested we extend the budget even further than we did, but something that would concern me about doing it now, and it's the communication that we're having with the community. And I know that we've spent a lot of time going out to the precinct meetings and trying to help people understand where we are at the 7.14% budget. And I guess my primary concern at this point would be around those comments that you made about people asking questions and trying to understand what's before them, and then changing what we're doing even further. I certainly think that at any opportunity, if there are people who support us going further with our budget, there are always motions that can be made from town floor to support further funding
That's a great idea.
for our school budget. And I think that we have heard a commitment from the members of this community that if Dr. Hackett can make it work in the first year to have 5 full-time interventionists, if his interest is not to work with our math coordinator to sort of phase in that development, that we could make a commitment as a committee that if town meeting were able to support us with more than we have asked for, that would certainly be a priority for us.
That's great. That's a great idea, Michelle.
Thank you. Dr. Matthews.
I just wanted to echo that. So part of the reason why in that very long conversation I was pushing to get to this level is because I think we will find over the next month Realistically, it's probably about a month based on the number of articles on the warrant for Springtown meeting. But over the course of the next month, I think we will probably find some additional places where either alternate funding paths are available or savings will be identified. That tends to be something that happens in the run up to Springtown meeting. And certainly would leave it in Dr. Hackett's hands to determine sort of how or whether to prioritize that. But I mean I agree. I think it's a high priority thing. Obviously, also dependent on being able to find the right number of people who have the right skill sets to put into those roles. And so I think what I would say is, for those of you that didn't see today, our representative Mike Day posted that the bill that was passed through the Massachusetts House actually has an increase in some of the percentages that are going to be reimbursed for circuit breaker in the coming fiscal year, should it pass through the Senate and be signed by the governor. But these are the sorts of things that I think are always great news. I think it's good that some folks at the state level are a little more aware of the real pressures that communities are facing. And I would probably end by saying, I think one of the things that I've been struck by in following the news about what's happening in other communities is that we are at 7.14% increase. I don't for those who may or may not have followed, there was actually a student walkout in North Reading, not too far north of us, a couple of weeks ago, in support of a budget that was going to necessitate cuts to the education that was delivered. And I believe they have landed, even my understanding is, unless I got this wrong, that even with the cuts that they will experience to educators next year, the town is still going to have roughly a 9% year-over-year increase. And that will actually require and necessitate cutting educators and cutting programs. So we are not alone. Many communities in Massachusetts are facing the same situation. And I'm optimistic, I guess, that we will be able to find a path, hopefully to fund that, if that's something that Dr. Hackett and the math department are able to work through. Hope that's helpful.
And then I guess I would also say I very much support the 2.5 math interventionists that are already in the budget. And I support 2.5. I understand that we need the 2.5 more math interventionists so that we can be able to provide somebody for each, provide that full-time, for that FTE for each school. I think when we were discussing the budget, at the time that we voted the budget, we talked a lot about how we were prioritizing over the 5 years, and that we were trying to be also, I guess, be mindful, because we know that this is a big ask going forward into town meeting. So I guess I'm in support of that. I do think, though, that I still land where I support where we landed with the budget at this point. I think if Dr. Hackett can find a way to be able to work those extra 2.5 math interventionists into what our ask is, then I would be fully supportive of that. Dr. Matthews, your hand is still up. Or Ms. Bergstrom's hand popped up.
I just did not put it down. Apologies.
Okay. Oh, now Ms. Bergstrom's hand went down, but she's muted.
Mine was actually up. I was
Yes.
just going to throw it back to Ms. Minyarji and ask her if the commitment of the committee to support that is something that you can that supports what you're saying, and you're happy with us moving forward with the budget as is.
Yeah, no, I think that we should ask for the commitment of the committee.
And I think so. Ms. Bolognese, would you like to just grab a consensus of the committee that were we able to increase our funding, that math specialists would be a priority of the school committee. I actually just mentioned that, so if we can commit to that.
And then I just see that Mr. Hopcroft's hand is up, so let me just clarify. Did you have something, Mr.
Were you
Hopcroft?
you're asking me, well, I was going to ask if Dr. Hackett wanted to make a recommendation either now or sometime in the future. Ms. Bergstrom's suggestion, actually maybe tips our hat to him by saying we would be supportive if you thought it was appropriate and brought it to us, Dr. Hackett. But if you wanted the opportunity before we were to have such a commitment, we'd love to hear from you.
Would you, Mr. Hopcroft?
would.
Thank you. So, of course, I mean, this committee, I think, already discussed your support, and certainly we are supportive as well. And I think that, some of the challenges right now is just we really don't know where we're going to land at town meeting, and we still are negotiating Unit A. We haven't even begun to negotiate Unit B, C, D, and E. So I think there's still a lot of unknowns. I would be once some of those unknowns are known, and depending on where things go with town budget, and to Ms. Bergstrom's point, if a motion comes from the floor that increases the budget beyond where we are right now, then while the motion cannot specify where to spend the money, obviously the conversation will happen, and you've already, as a committee, I think, gained consensus on that being your next priority. It certainly would be ours as well. So if we can, if we're able to find the money, we would definitely have that be our next priority. If the committee is asking me to look within the current budget to see if we could prioritize that, then I would likely at this point need to be bringing back some reductions somewhere, because I just feel that at this point, because we do not know where our contract's going to land, I think, but I also just want to say that it's not too late at the after town meeting for, and even into June, and even into July, if conditions change, that we could bring that conversation back to the committee. Things do change. You just really never know what's going to happen, whether there's potentially a change in our district placement that's favorable, or we have an unexpected retirement, or those kinds of things can happen, have happened, and do happen. It can also, we've also had situations where, as you know, we've had an increase in enrollment in a particular grade in a particular school, like on August 20th, that we've had to accommodate for by adding an additional classroom teacher. So, of course, I obviously serve at the will of the committee, and but I know I can speak for us as a leadership team that the math specialists are absolutely a priority for us, and I know they're a priority for teachers. They identify and parents, that was really identified in the community surveys as well.
Ms.
Just,
Vignardi.
just to clarify for again, this is a lesson that was learned during the precinct meetings. These are math interventionists, right? So they're student facing, they're assisting the teachers in the classroom. They're helping our tier students that have been identified as tier 2, right? Students that need additional support, right? I do think that we should keep our eyes open for opportunities that present themselves and not adding funds to the budget that was approved. So just to commit ourselves to, if the opportunity should present itself, if there are funds that become available within the budget, if there are adjustments that can be made to accommodate the additional 2.5, that's the commitment that I feel like we should make as a committee. Right? Because only because these are not math directors or specialists or there are many coordinators. These are interventionists, meaning they're student facing. So that's just an important point to clarify.
Mr. Hopcroft?
Yeah, I was going to suggest, because I think we, generally I'm hearing we all are very supportive of these roles. And perhaps we could suggest that we revisit this a little bit down the road, because it sounds like we're going to have more information. Maybe the contracts will settle before town meeting, maybe they won't. Maybe we'll know about more out of district placements or not. but I would be more comfortable having a conversation, about, what impact this might have with our budget. It certainly is a very high priority in my book as well, as I think we've heard from everyone here. And really more is that in mind, it's about threading the needle with, with town meeting and not increasing the budget, but there's also um, I think at least a suggestion that in our last meeting, that when we were voting for the amounts we voted for, that took into account that there was some expectation that there would be some offsetting, contributions or grants or otherwise. So, I think, reevaluating that, because it may be that we have, um, maybe our commitments, we have the room to put these additional roles in, which I'd love to see happen. But I think we should have a conversation when we know what that looks like, because it will be different from what we had talked about before, which was that the number might even come down below 7. And and so I just think maybe if we're lucky, we have more information in a few weeks before town meeting, and I'd love to revisit that if we could.
Thank you. Dr. Matthews?
Thank you. I just wanted to go back to Dr. Hackett and put him on the spot. I apologize for that, but so when we had discussed this previously, I think there was sort of the original thought was to split. So there was a line item to basically do half of what was intended for the math interventionists for the upcoming year, and then a line item to add literacy, and then there were 3 other items that were in there as well. And so I just wanted to verify with you. I mean, I'm personally, I'm very supportive, because I think this is actually something that's very much needed. But I just wanted to, I guess my 2 questions are: number one, do you think it's feasible to sort of bring five FTEs on board, or is that a too tall of an order for the first year? I'm sort of thinking about this in the same sort of pilot and full rollout model that we may be doing for the literacy curriculum. And I guess the second question I would have is,
And with hiring challenges, I'll just
right.
interject that.
No, that's exactly. And I guess my second question would be, do you think that you would take this over some of the other tier 2 priorities that we decided not to fund during that complicated conversation? Because I know we discussed some of the smaller dollar ones we might be able to fund through philanthropic efforts, or might be included in something else. I just wanted to get a clear answer on that, I guess.
Sure. Thank you for the question. So I think that we're in a different place with math than we were with literacy in some respects. Ms. Kirby has been working with our math coordinator at the elementary level. There's a lot of conversations just with teachers and really trying to kind of map out what are we using currently, what are the programs we're using. I think I've shared with some of you, is sitting in on a couple of grade level team meetings, and I just had an example of a grade 2 team that was using San Francisco math, and a grade 3 team that was using in the same building everyday math. And the grade 3 team was talking about how kids are coming to them with gaps in some vocabulary, and then they had a conversation with grade 2 team, and they were saying, well, why don't we just get common vocabulary? So I think there's a lot of good things happening in mathematics. I think there's no question we're kind of in the same place where we just really need to examine what are we using for programs. But I think separate and apart from all that, and also just to add that we are, Ms. Cribs, we're actually going to be implementing a math screener. So that will provide us some data, not unlike the DIBELS data for literacy, that we would be able to really kind of have some actionable data. Certainly teachers are doing assessments all the time in the classroom. I think students, I'm sure that there's probably not many teachers at the elementary level that if we said who are the top 3 or 5 kids that you think need some support, direct support, they would have a list for us. So I think that from us, and I think if I understand your question, Dr. Matthews, I would be less concerned about implementing is from the standpoint, are we ready to implement? I think some of it would be fire ready aim. I think it would be an investment worth making. I think they would people would begin to start to figure out what that role is. And because there's going to be some of that anyway. And because we really don't have any real direct tier two from the perspective of an additional person or specialist providing that, I think that we would be able to adapt fairly quickly with the idea that the starting point would be just really what are the needs of our students, which then leads into really what additional conversations around, what are we doing with the program? And if we were to, that is the conversation, if we were to get to a place where we're talking about program implementation, professional development, those positions I think would be key in implementing all of that. And I think they would be gainfully employed. And I think that it would be helpful from the standpoint of also helping us understand kind of how do we start really kind of bringing things together. And I will say, the initial, and this is unfortunate for other districts, and I think Dr. Massey's to your earlier point, what we're seeing in some of our pools right now are teachers who are being laid off elsewhere. So to the question of whether or not we can hire is a very different market right now for us if we're able to maintain our fiscal position, because there are a lot of people who are out of work, who are looking to find work, and so that would not be of concern, nor would it really be of concern, I think, given everything, if this extended into like midsummer. I really think that there's possibilities out there, and we may have staff, teachers who are in the classroom currently who are interested. So, we might find ourselves hiring a teacher at a grade level, and then we're hiring a placement for that general grade classroom. So I wouldn't be concerned about hiring. I think that we would find our way around a little bit. And I think people would just need to be kind of patient around, and I think they would be around what are these positions and what do they serve. But I think we have capacity with a math coordinator already in place. I think the bigger question, I think we all always kind of worry about the capacity of our teachers, right? But we know we're doing a lot of work around literacy, and that is our focus. But I think that doesn't mean we're not still teaching math and that there's not needs there. So I absolutely think we can make it work if the positions became, or the funding became available. I can't help it be a little nervous about where we are, and just as we sit down and negotiate these contracts. And that's my job, to be a little bit nervous, I think. I think we'll know a lot more in the next 4 or 5 weeks as to how we're positioned in some key areas and what we might have available. And if the committee, even with all that, is interested in us really coming back and looking at existing resources and thinking differently, then then we can do that too. And really, to finally say that, to answer your what I think was one of your questions, we had those positions there in priority order. I would say we're all set right now with, I would not want to really bring on additional literacy specialists or interventionists at this time, because I think we're still trying to really figure out what's our program. And I think we have people that we have enough right now. I don't think we could honestly say that we would need more at this point until we really kind of land on a program.
Mr. Hopcroft?
Yeah, I was gonna say, unless you're comfortable making that recommendation now, Dr. Hackett, I do think a little time might be good to gather more data, but I'm also, and I heard you just say that you maybe things have changed since our meeting, and but I was looking over the the tier 2 items that we chose not to do, and so literacy specialists, there's some additional ones in there, and some other not as 50 math resources, professional development, theater, etc. But I know you and the team had done a process of prioritizing what was in tier 1, what was in tier 2, how to phase in towards a goal that we have to have one interventionist in each building. And you chose to phase it in over a 2-year period. I'm fine accelerating that, but I feel a little bit uncomfortable with us being the one telling you that this is the item off of that we want to pull from next year forward to this year ahead of some of the things that you had in this year's list. And so I really love, I'd love to have this conversation because I think it'd be great if we could figure a way to fit it in this year. But I'd really love to give you a little bit of time to talk with your team and come back. And if that's, something you feel strongly about, because I also remember you had talked about ramping up these roles, and that there was some benefit to phasing them. And I thought I recalled all that could be different now. You've had a lot more input from the community. You've have a little bit more information. So if you're ready and want to make a recommendation tonight, I'd be happy to support it. But I feel like, I don't want the tail wagging the dog here. I'd really love it if you let us know what you thought was the best use of resources here. Just because I feel like we're pulling something, we're suggesting to you something which I think, from my point of view, I think would be good. But I'm not running a school district, so I'd love to throw it back to you.
And I think I'm hearing that there are a number of unknowns with collective bargaining. We're still working on just one of the units, and we have 4 more units to go. And that there are a number of other unknowns yet, and that we still have a little bit of time, and that you can come back in the next 4 or 5 weeks and with to give us some more time to have some kind of conversation around this. So
yes, and just to directly address and answer Ms. Toplar's question, I mean, if you remember, I phased tiers, right? So the stuff that was in tier 2 is all stuff that if we had the funding, that those were priorities. So I purposely stopped at tier 1 because I got nervous. And if you recall, thank you, Andrew, I presented the recommended priorities. Clearly, literacy pilot and supporting that pilot is number 1. I priced that out to the best of my ability at this point. And I also provided what would it look like, in fact, if we had some outside funding for some of these. And I don't think those numbers are unrealistic at all for outside funding. So I back to the earlier points around this. If we are able to get outside funding for some of these one-time costs, then that the conversation would be in and around, okay, we're at 7.125. I think that's the number. I have a hard time committing it to my head. Then there's room for that conversation. With understanding all of the unknowns. And so yeah, we would have loved to have had everything below that too, and to kind of, would love to have landed on a tier 1 plus tier 2 priorities. It was $1 million, but at some point, $1 million. At some point, I felt like we had to stop. So, and I appreciated the committee's support and the conversations you had around going further with that. I wouldn't really not be concerned, and I wouldn't have put them on FY26 if I was concerned about implementing those. They would not have shown up there. So I just didn't want to dare dream that we would be going through that entire list. So,
well, and unless I've missed things here, the second half of those roles is down on line 20, so it's not in the tier 1 or tier 2. It's in the 2027. So if you scroll down there, it's there. So just in my mind, I'm like, why was it there?
Because I hit $1 million in tier 1 plus tier 2, and I didn't want to go deeper than that.
Yeah.
I felt like I was a child in the candy store at that point, as it was. So
I was going to say, Mr. Hopcroft, I think we spoke at budget subcommittee that it wasn't a priority, it was spreading it out over the years.
Correct.
So it's a funding issue. It's not, it wasn't a program issue. So,
right.
And if the logic of the funding has changed, I'd love to have that conversation, because we do agree that it's an important thing. It's just there's a lot of important things that we need to get done. So if we can bump that up, I'd love to do that. I just want to make sure that we were being mindful that it was coming from your recommendation.
Yes, and I think what's hard, we heard this, a couple of you, few of you, well, many of you joined the precinct meetings, and you heard the same thing. And the conversation around the level service budget is what is just a huge challenge because, as you know, you made a significant commitment, which was the right commitment to put us in a more favorable position in the market for hiring staff. And given the fact that we're almost entirely staff, 88%, and we were running into situations prior to the contract that were in being negotiated that we were losing people literally at $8,000 and $10,000 for the same role because they could go somewhere else and do the same thing, making that much more money. I mean, I'm pleased to report those days are over. I mean, we are truly competitive with the schools that people would say we should be comparable with within the area. And so that has changed a lot of things. That doesn't mean that we still don't have some positions that are challenging to hire. You know, we do, but we're getting pools now for those positions that we weren't getting before. So I think the challenge of this budget, as you know, is when you come in with a 5.8, 5.9% level service budget, that's your starting point. So everything, because it's by itself, not that $1 million isn't a lot of money, but by itself, that's not a huge amount of money, right? It's a little bit more than 1% of your total budget. The issue is the starting point to get there, and that's impacted by just the cumulative effect of a contract that is has put us in a position where we are more competitive, which is key. But we're feeling the effects of that in addition to the effects of inflationary increases over the last several years, and we've already talked about all of those. So um, yeah. So I mean, in a normal year, I'm normal, whatever that means anymore, this would not be as a big of an ask because we wouldn't be starting at a point that was so high.
Dr. Matthews, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I know that we don't have the line items, but Mr. Hupcroft referred to the line item, the line numbers in the original Excel document. I realize we're looking at a PDF here. But I think I just want to be clear because the question that I was really asking was, so I think what Ms. Minarji is trying to ask is whether the committee would be supportive of adding, just to be super crisp about this, both the 2.5 FTE mathematics interventionists. It's the third item down on the screen, in addition to the one that's currently highlighted towards the bottom of the screen, so that we would end up by the end of next fiscal year, by the end of next academic year, with 5 total math specialists, 1 in each school. And I am I believe what I'm hearing is that, the committee would be supportive of that. But the real reason I asked Dr. Hackett that question was obviously, other than the sort of fear around the $1 million number, right? And I'll have something to say about that in just a second. But other than that, I think that would entail, the request that's been made, what that would entail is essentially bringing that second tranche, that second group of the 2.5 additional FTEs up into, sort of above other priorities that are sort of in between there. And that was what I was really trying to get at. So I just want to make sure that we're super clear on that. I certainly think that tier 2 support is one of the most important things we can provide to students. And I would certainly be open to considering that. But I wanted to say, I guess, more broadly, this is a really hard position for us to be in. And that's why I brought off the example of North Andover, right? Because I can certainly understand folks' concerns about the actual percentage, right? It is pretty extraordinary for us to be in a situation where we need to essentially have this percentage 5 point, I believe it was after some of the savings that were identified, it was essentially like 5.6, 5.7%. So the vast majority of the increase is literally just to deliver the same program we're delivering this year, next year, right? And then we kind of, felt very like it was kind of going out on the limb, but we really only added about 1.5% additional to get the really high priority that folks wanted. And it wasn't even to address this vast list of needs that, you know, I think what I'm trying to get at is, you know, as a district, we really need to think about this as sort of a re-level setting, right? To sort of get to the supports that are necessary to provide an education that meets the needs of students where they're at right now after COVID, after, you know, issues with learning loss, after sort of the 5 years of trying to get back to a sort of new state of normal, I guess, in the world when it relates to providing education to students. So it's a hard conversation. I think we're actually lucky in Winchester because we happen to be in a little bit better of a financial position than a lot of other towns are in, and also it turns out that our you know our budget office in the schools is really excellent. Thank you, Mr. Marin and Dr. Hackett, for, you know, really focusing in on the efficiencies and making sure that we all the places where we're able to sort of save year over year. And I think it's a lot of kudos go to both of them, as well as our budget subcommittee members for, you know, getting us really to, I mean, it's crazy to say, but only 5.6% increase year over year when some districts, you know, are cutting positions and budgets and getting close to 10% year over year. So thank you.
Ms. Bergstrom.
I just want to be really quick. Ms. Menardi, you're not suggesting we add to our budget tonight. You were just looking for the committee to commit that if additional funds became available, that having 5 math specialists in each building would be a priority for this.
Correct. To prioritize that. Correct.
And that these tier 1, Dr. Hackett, and tier 2 priorities were designed when you were looking at us only funding tier 1. Is that correct? That tier 1 you believed was going to be beyond our scope. So were we going to look at additional funding, we may also revisit some of those tier 2 priorities.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I went so far as to, in the literacy priorities, to 'cause I thought you'd want to talk about it, to offer the possibility of outside funding for these identified as one-time expenditures, with the idea that I wasn't sure what your appetite would be for going beyond that, and of course you did, which I only stopped because I didn't know how far to go. I mean, if so, I think if we're really talking about, there isn't any question that math intervention at the elementary level is needed. I think I've said it before. I've really never been in any school system where it's not provided, and I think it is, can be, and likely is part of our special education identification issue, because we don't really have, if you are a student and you're having math difficulties, even if we really are being able to provide for that support in a classroom, we still, with parents are concerned, and they feel the need that there's a need for something extra, we don't have a place to go for that. So where that goes is, understandably so, if is it can end up in the special education referral process. So we have a keen interest, to build our tier 2s in a way that stops that slope and that slippery slide into special education, which I think is happening for reasons that are both necessary and understandable for students who need it, but also I think for reasons because I think there's a parental confidence around, um, if I don't see someone who's providing intervention, I don't see that being provided, and I don't have a plan that's outside of the general classroom, I think there's a concern or a worry that it's just not happening, and that we end up. And I am truly anecdotally generalizing, and I could be completely off target. So I've not tested this theory, but I think some of that is what we're experiencing. I certainly know that I don't have a question, we experience it with literacy, and I think you know that as well. So, so there's no doubt, not only is it the right thing to do for kids, but I think it's an investment that could help us with cost avoidance over time. And I think that you know there's no question it would be a priority. Yeah, so I'll stop.
Mr. Hopcroft.
So just a clarification on that, because I hear you're saying that, you know, if we identify this thing, you think it's a priority, and we agree with that. Would you say that it is, if you take the things that we've already voted for, and say those are already supported, would this be the next item that you would recommend on the list of tier 2 and 2027 items? So you wouldn't, you know, and I don't, this is where I just don't know. This is where my lack of comfort comes from, because I don't know if it's better to have, you know, half a math interventionist in each building and pilot some new programs, because that's, I see item 21. I don't know.
Yeah,
Are we concerned about health PE, adaptive
yeah.
PE implementation?
I'm
We've
happy
had
to
that
answer the
sitting out for
question.
a few
I'm happy to
years.
answer the question.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have the benefit of going back to my team. You know, Ms. Kirby and Dr. Ellen are sitting on here, and I mean, I would want to refresh and have a conversation with them and with principals to. But I have said this about other things. If we're gonna fund a program, fund a program. Like you either do it or you don't do it. And going halfway is, for in this situation when we have nothing, is better than not doing anything, right? So if the question is, would we be able to implement mathematics support at the elementary level with more integrity if we had one person per school? The answer is yes. And you've modeled that ahead of me. Even, well, actually, we finished it up, but I kind of borrowed from the SEL coach approach that you took to build in 2.5 and then to try to get to 5, right? I don't think you would have done that way. Maybe you would have, but had money been available, I'm imagining that probably that would have been the recommendation, is to put one in every single building to start. But 0.5 is better than nothing, but 0.5 also means we're going to lose 20% of every one of those 2 positions because they're going to travel, right? So yeah, I mean, I would rather go, if the money were available, I'd rather go all in on one thing and do it right. I don't think this
And
is doing it wrong. I think this provides us an opportunity to do something more than what we're doing, which I think is valuable enough to put it on here as a priority, if that's clear.
yeah,
But I would prefer not to continue to get pushed on the question, Mr. Hopcroft, respectfully, because
okay.
I think we're talking a little bit hypothetically right now, because I
Hold
think
on.
I hear, and I would love to have, if the committee would, I think this was the point that was made earlier, it certainly would be helpful for the committee to take just a consensus, at what's not to say a vote, but come to consensus and agreement for the record that this would be what your next priority would be. That's what I thought I heard being said, and that would be helpful because that gives us some direction from the committee, and it's certainly a recommendation that we would be supportive of.
All right.
And you would be fine with that at this particular point in time, rather than looking to have a conversation about this and revisiting it in
I
following town meeting?
absolutely would, because there's, if we're gonna go to 2.5, which I did not have, is on my list. If just to just to remind everybody, I stopped at the first part of this, which had to do with literacy, and in that those priorities, you will note there is no FTE in there, because I was concerned about putting FTEs in this budget, and then if we were not able to get the funding in the following year, that we were going to be eliminating people that we just hired. So that conversation is gone, because as a committee made a decision to go deeper into this. So yeah, I mean, I would prefer to do this the right way. I mean, I wasn't trying to do it the wrong way. It's just I was following another model, and I was trying to be mindful of the ticker that was running as we went down this list.
You were trying to create a beachhead, right? A
Thank-
sort of something that we could build off of for the
Right.
future. But I think, you know, I want to say thank you to Ms. Minyarji for bringing this up, because it got us to a point where we were actually able to have a further conversation about that model of sort of doing it halfway and then trying to get it, you know, the other half of the way the future year. You know, as far as I'm concerned, I know that we're all concerned about the numbers. That was where I was coming from when I was just trying to get a couple of the line items in, because I know that all of these things are really things that we should be doing in the upcoming school year. They're, you know, addressing real, not deficiencies, but real sort of under scoping, under allocation of resources that we're trying to solve for. And so, you know, I applaud your, at least for my own sake, I applaud Dr. Hackett, your, you know, sort of responsibility in trying to, you know, keep the numbers as low as possible. I guess I would sort of reframe it as, you know, what we've done here. I would like to say that I would be glad to reframe this as, you know, a conservative approach to really addressing the needs that we have, right? So we didn't go for all of tier two because I think we all had concerns about, you know, how that would actually happen in this year before we have an override. And I think the sort of longer list of things is something that really can come with an override. But the challenge is by waiting another year, we've waited another year on things that we know we need, right? And that's, you know, I do hope that, just in summary, I do hope that we will be able to get to a place where we can fund five, you know, one math interventionist for each of our five elementary schools, because I think that would be incredibly helpful for tier two. Um, but you know, that's I'm not going to tell you that I wouldn't love to go further as well. I just think, you know, we are in a really tough situation in some ways until the override passes.
Mr. Hopcroft, I'm going to let Miss Bergstrom go because she has her hand up.
So I think the suggestion that I made when Ms. Minardi had first raised this was that I think all we need to look for today is consensus from the committee that this would be a priority. Dr. Hackett's right. This is the way we've always done it. We've always done half at a time, half at a time, half at a time to try to get there. And we've never imagined what would happen if we had more. So I look at this as an exercise in imagining. So if we had the resources, if we had the space, if we had the time, would this committee be able to come to consensus that entering to with 5 full-time math specialists, interventionists at the elementary school level would be something that we could support? We're not taking a vote, we're not committing, we're just saying that that is, as a committee, something that we value and find important. Everything I said initially, I'm not in favor of changing our budget at this time because I think that is poor messaging, but I think that we can support something and also message to the community that we only went halfway because we thought we could. So that I think that was all I was saying, and I hear Mr. Matthews supporting that. I'm certain, since Ms. Minardi brought it up, that she supports that. So I guess I'm just looking to hear if Mr. Hopcroft and Ms. Bolognese support that as well.
Yeah, well, and so I'm happy to, I'm very supportive of
We
that.
can,
So
yes,
I'm
if we
I'm
can just
happy to,
reach consensus.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what
Great.
I was pausing a little bit because I thought maybe the chair should rally us.
No.
But um,
And I'm fine with, since we're just asking for consensus here, I think we do seem to have consensus around or around prioritizing the math interventionists, all five of them. Should we be able to find the funding? If we can make that work, and if Dr. Hackett and his team can can figure out how to make that work and bring back a recommendation to us. So
and implicit in that, you know, the second half of it, I was going to say is just that, you know, I read between the lines, Dr. Hackett, was you saying that this would be your next prioritization because there were a whole lot of other things, you know, out there that, you know, that I just don't have enough basis of knowledge for knowing how you want to sequence the things, because there are quite a few. But I'm very supportive of this.
Yes.
And I think that will be an important conversation as we go forward with a 5-year plan, and thinking about that, and in the committee's own planning. It's just how each of those items is prioritized in the ensuing tiers and going out. All right. So thank you very much. I think that was a good discussion and much needed. Dr. Hackett, did you have anything further on the FY26 budget update?
This only to say, and Mr. Marin had it called up, but all the documents are on our finance webpage. We truly learned so much from the precinct meetings, and we're going to do a Zoom for all precinct members who may want to attend for a second show, or those who couldn't make the first time around next Thursday. We're going to we actually are rethinking a little bit about some of the things that in terms of how we present and what we need to focus on a little bit more. So we're going to do that work in the interim, but for now, so that you know, and I think you all know, just to be clear, we do have every document on here. And Mr. Mayor, if you could just do one of those, hit that 26 drop down, so people can see that once again, everything that we've done for presentations and all the recordings from meetings that were recorded are all right here that people can go to. So there's no lack of information, but what we did learn from people who aren't as connected to the schools because they may not have students here is some fundamental things like what is Chapter 70 and what is circuit breaker. And I think we want to spend a little more time just trying to build out some really high level understandable definitions of those because I think it's that important. I think Chapter 71 is particularly important because I think I think people hear things like the Student Opportunity Act and the money that came through that, and that there are ratios for students who need additional services where you receive additional Chapter 70 funding, and how come what are we doing with that money? The answer continues to be we don't ever get it because we are a minimum receiver, meaning we get a per pupil allocation because of our really the makeup of our community and the wealth factor that is factored in Chapter 70. So I think we just need to help people understand that because that's where the pressure comes from, is that we don't get any other help. And so therefore we have these conversations about a budget that has a significant impact on local residents because that's the source of funding. So I think we need to really provide a little bit more context for that so people can understand those pieces. So really the revenue side, I guess is what I'm saying. I think we have spent a little bit more time on. So, but for now, everything's right there.
Thank you. And you said that Zoom or the next informational Zoom is going to be on Thursday.
It'll be Thursday at
what time?
6:30, and we'll be sending that
6:30.
information out to all precinct members, all town meeting members tomorrow.
That's great.
And I wanted also to just say a quick thank you to, sorry, I have potentially a 4-year-old coming in, but I want to say a quick thank you to the people that in the community who helped to organize those. I know there were some school committee members who helped with organizing those forums as well. Certainly Dr. Hackett and Mr. Marin for giving their time, but it was great to sort of in our precinct especially, and the neighboring precinct that did their session together last night. It was great to see that it was there was such a high level of interest in organizing that from the community on a more grassroots level. So thanks to everybody who helped and worked with the school department to put those together.
Great. All right. Dr. Hackett, shall we go back to the consideration of the 25-26 McCall Program of Studies?
Oh man, got me talking. Why don't we go on to the school committee meeting dates, and
Okay.
I will text right now.
right.
Promise.
Oh, okay.
I was just too engaged. I'm sorry. So
No worries. Actually, next we have consideration of the 25-26 school year calendar, but we have had to table that. Dr. Hackett, I believe you had said that you had shared that with the union. And they had some.
Madam Chair, I have a hard time doing two things at the same time. So
I know, I just
on
realized.
getting that text off. Yes,
So
but we did
there
have a
were some
conversation.
questions that come from the union.
Yeah. So I mean, as we always do, we do get feedback from the WEA members, and there was some feedback that I think we need to spend a little bit more time with. We'll actually be meeting with some some of their leadership next Tuesdays. We do meet about once a month on Tuesdays to cover other issues. So this will be on that agenda. So we have a good conversation. I mean, I don't think there's anything that you have seen that is fundamentally different. The last calendar you saw, we had the additional early release days for professional development. We have since moved those to Friday based on feedback from you last time. And I don't think there's anything that's totally insurmountable. And as you know, the calendar really is in the purview of the committee. It's educational policy and it's yours to pass. But um, clearly, we want to make sure staff have the opportunity to weigh in on it. So we'll be back to you. What I would like to suggest, you do have a pre-town meeting on the 28th. You hold those, as you know, at 6 o'clock. We've posted for all those. And we can put a few things on there that I think should be relatively quick discussions. And I regret saying that already. But I think we'll be able to get you the documents ahead of time. And that's a good lead into the next conversation, which is the 25-26 call program of studies. This tonight there's not urgency around you approving this tonight. Mr. Lynn is going to be with us if he's not already. I did get a thumbs up, so he'll be joining us, and he can walk us through some of the changes that are there, and have a chance for you to ask any clarifying questions. And then if you're comfortable, that's great. If not, we'll come back on the 28th and have you take a look at it, and we'll get answers to the questions you might have.
So, Dr. Hackett, just very quickly on the calendar, is there any way, since the documents that we've already considered are public, is there a way, since I continue to have gotten some questions about whether certain key dates, which I don't think were at issue in the two versions of the calendar that we had reviewed, is there any way that we can make those sort of the process of doing that transparent so folks can kind of see where we're at, maybe even have a page like we did for the budget, where we just put up, where we're at right now? I don't know if that's helpful, but it's something that I wanted to think about, just because
Sure.
things like vacation dates, when
Yep.
not necessarily the stuff that's still at issue, but the stuff that we've
Yep.
kind of established already.
Yep.
where we're at.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Assuming that those are all.
Yep. No,
Still set. Okay.
there was no feedback on that. It was really
Okay.
around the professional development days and some of that stuff. So.
Oh, okay.
Dr. Hackett, sometimes in the past we voted just the first and last day of school just to firm it so that daycare and other camps and things like that are able to be scheduled. Are we even certain on the first and last day of school?
We're definitely starting on the first day of school. Contractually, where Labor Day falls is in the contract. We don't have any options on that anyway.
Okay.
So that would be.
I believe
September 4th.
and I believe we already actually voted the first day, didn't we?
You
that
had
was the
consent.
only thing we
Yeah,
did.
did you vote? Okay,
I
I can't remember whether you took a vote or not.
I don't think we voted it, Mr. Matthews, because it was the first time we saw it, and we
Yeah.
usually vote the first time we see something. So,
But yeah. But you did communicate, and I think we were clear that
We've
that
said a
was
number
gonna
of
be
times that the
4th.
first date is September 4th.
Right. And then the last day of school.
It's June 23rd.
Okay, thank you. That would be with no snow days used.
so are we able to vote those tonight or not? Not yet.
Sure, you can vote those. Yep. So you'd be voting. You can affirm that if you want to take that vote. The 23rd would be the last day of school with no snow days. We are required by statute to build in 5 snow days. So the last day with snow days would put us on June 30. As you know, you can't go past June 30. You can't go into July. So if we really got into a tough spot, we would have to maybe talk about. We do have a professional development day in the spring. We would probably have to have conversations around that. I'm not knock on wood, but we've not had that issue to date.
Mr. Hopcroft?
Yeah, just building on before we do that vote, and building on Dr. Matthews' question, the questions I'm getting are really around the winter holiday and whether people have 2 weeks off or not. So if we're able to vote the last day, it sounds like we've made the commitment to those 2 weeks off. And if that's the case,
Are
could we
those
also?
are those questions you're getting at home, Mr. Hopcroft? Yes, you can vote that as well. Sorry,
We
just
got that.
kidding.
Might be hearing them
Yes.
from multiple places.
I'm going to be seeing some people tomorrow night who have asked
Who
these
have
questions.
who have an interest.
Ms.
But,
Bolognese, can
yeah.
you, I would make a motion to vote the first day of school is September 4th, the last day of school is June 23rd, and the winter holiday as, can you fill in the dates for me? It seems you
I
have the.
believe it's December 22nd through January 2nd.
Thank you. I don't
Actually,
know.
you know what? Let
I don't
me
know.
just
I don't know
stare
what
at
the dates
that.
are, but
You got it.
I did? Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I've stared at it enough.
That's the motion then tonight. So that
Can
We
I
have
just
a second.
clarify that those
Yes.
dates you just gave are student days?
Student days, correct.
Yep.
what could you just repeat it was December 22nd to January 2nd, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
So I can repeat the motion. So the motion would be that the school committee would vote the first student day as September 4th, 2025, the last day of school as June 23rd, 2026, and the winter holiday would be from December 22nd, 2025 to January 2nd, 2026.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, Ms. Minyarji,
Aye.
Mr. Hopcroft,
Aye.
Ms. Bergstrom,
Aye.
Dr. Matthews,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye, and the vote is unanimous on some key dates for the 2026 school year. Okay. Do we have Mr. Lin with us? I'm looking. Otherwise, we'll go on to the.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead and move on. He's
All right.
he's just looking for a link.
So next we will take up consideration of the school committee meeting dates. So if we could pull those up, these are just for just clarifying or just setting out our pre-town meeting dates, which have already been booked, and then booked as in posted, I believe, and then also reviewing some of our future meeting dates, and then also looking into the summer. So let's see.
But I recognize that.
You know what? I think I'm looking at the wrong screen.
So while
Unless
you're
it's up.
pulling that, I was just gonna say, it'll be hard to probably find dates that everyone is available, but I do have conflicts on 3 of those dates. One in May, one in July, one in August.
Can we, Ms. Bolognese, can we have an opportunity to look at these and then maybe get back to it at our next meeting? And maybe get back to you with any conflict.
Yes,
That'd be
you were
great.
asking, I think, for the vacation schedules. So yes. I cannot tell actually if this is up on the screen. So, but if it is not, it is in
is
your
not.
binders. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
So if you could take a look at these, I've gotten feedback from some about their availability, and then we'll have a discussion the next time around.
Great.
Okay.
Are we still,
Yeah.
Dr. Hackett, are we still waiting for Mr. Lin?
He is.
I'm not
He'll
seeing
be
him.
here shortly.
Okay. I'm
We need
not
a
seeing
link.
him in the waiting room, so.
Yes.
Can I also just suggest if there are dates on there that you know do not work for you already, can you just can you send Aaron an email? And if you can't send an email before May 2nd, then you'll be sending it to me, and best of luck with that. So her last day is May 2nd. So James is here.
Great. All right. So now we'll take up the consideration of the 25-26 McCall Program of Studies. Principal Lin.
He is being elevated.
Welcome.
Can you hear me?
Welcome. Yep.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, hi, everybody.
Hello.
Good evening. It's always sunny with blue skies in McCall.
That's right. There's forever blue skies and sunny. That's how we feel all the time, even though we're in the midst of MCAS. So, yes, thanks for having me. So, the major changes are in the English curriculum and also our math curriculum. The English it puts us in front of you, the English program, not because the curriculum has changed, but mostly we just want to make sure that the committee is aware of the literature and also the readings that we're offering the students, and how those materials are aligning with the curriculum that we're teaching. So the major changes is to make sure that the books, the articles that we're using to teach those standards are updated in the program of studies, in case that people want to know when the students go into sixth grade, seventh grade English classes, what are the reading materials that are commonly used. Again, this by no means is an exhaustive list, because as we know, teachers often find different materials that's appropriate for what's happening in the class at that time. So what's being updated in the program of studies is what's commonly being used. So the main books, for example. Okay. The other major sets of changes is our continuation in our work to align our course to the state standards. So in our seventh grade and eighth grade for a couple of years now, the focus has been on algebra. And so that doesn't quite align well with the state standards, because in seventh grade and eighth grade, according to the state standard, it's not just purely algebra. There's topics on geometry, there's topics on statistics as well. And so the major changes started happen last year, and a lot of credit goes to Ms. Often, the secondary math director, and our seventh grade teachers to align that, for lack of a better term, the middle level course, to make sure that that course is aligned with our standards. And same thing last summer, that a lot of work went into our eighth grade math courses, so that what we used to call Algebra 2 is not just purely algebra. And that course now includes topics of geometry, statistics, and such. Again, aligning standard is very important to us, and also align with what the students are going to be learning when they head off to the high school. Because as you know, when they head to the high school, the math courses stack, and it's not just algebra, it's statistics, trigonometry, and geometry. And we want to make sure that when our students head over to those ninth grade classes, they have the foundation to be able to be successful in those classes. Okay, so currently we still have a lot of work in terms of alignment. And so one major area that we're going to continue to work on is again, for lack of a better term, the most advanced course in that seventh grade class that we currently call Advanced Algebra 1. Right now, it's still very much focused on algebra, the topic of algebra. And so we definitely want to explore that curriculum and make it more aligned with the seventh grade standards from DESE.
I'm sorry, which is the Advanced Algebra 1, or is this
The seventh
Advanced
grade
Algebra
course, the
2?
seventh algebra 1. So currently our seventh grade
Seventh
classes,
grade.
it's
Okay.
pre-algebra, which is the course that's the least rigorous. All right, and that's a course that students are required the most support. Right, and then again, lack of a better term, middle level is currently called Algebra 1. That one has undergone the most adjustment in the last 2 years. And so that course is right now the best aligned with our standards. So that course currently is called seventh grade Algebra 1. And then the most rigorous course in our seventh grade curriculum, seventh grade course catalog is called seventh grade Advanced Algebra 1. All right, that one requires the most amount of revision in the coming years. In our eighth grade, it's Algebra 8 and Algebra 2, and also Advanced Algebra 2. like I said, those three courses, all three of them for the last 2 years has undergone a lot of revision. Again, the purpose is to make sure that the courses this is not just purely algebra, it's also including content in topics such as geometry and statistics.
So is the Algebra 7 class that's listed at the top of the math section that's now called Math 7-8, is that the one that you're saying is the
Right. So
Algebra 1?
correct. So currently
Okay.
that course is called Algebra 7. And we've been debating whether we want to change the title of these courses. And we went back and forth, and there's a good points to be made for either decision. And right now we're landing on just keeping the current name, which is Algebra 7, um, Algebra 1, and Advanced Algebra 1. And in eighth grade is Algebra 8, and then Algebra 2, and Advanced Algebra 2. The reason why we feel like we want to keep the same name right now is because, like I said, not all 6 courses has been fully aligned yet. And so there's still a lot of revision that needs to be done. And our thinking right now is that after all 6 courses are all well aligned with the state standards, then we can think about the appropriate names, okay, to be given these courses, right? So that there's a logical sequence in how we title the courses, going from the 6th grade courses to the 7th grade courses to the 8th grade courses. Right now, the algebra name, even though it doesn't fully align with what the course is, it still does. The course is still very much about algebra, so it's not completely wrong to call them algebra course, to call them algebra classes.
What's in green, James, is that you're not changing it to this year.
Correct. We just kind of put that in there because we were debating whether we want to change it or not. And so one idea is to call them Math 7-8. I have some reservations about that because yes, that does make sense because that course does have some 8th grade standards, but I also don't want parents and to mislead that as we're teaching an 8th grade course to the 7th graders. Right. So again, what is the title of the name? That's been undergoing a lot of debate among the teachers, myself, and also Dr. Hackett and Dr. El-Nema. And so we've been thinking very carefully about what to title it. And I fully understand because the content of the courses are going under revision, so it doesn't exactly match the title of Algebra 7 or Algebra 1. But we feel like it's more prudent to wait until all the courses are fully aligned to title it. So we're not changing it this year. And then 2 years later, after everything is aligned, we're changing it again. I think that will cause a lot of confusion about what's going on.
Ms. Bergstrom.
I have a completely unrelated math question, so I can my question until if anybody else has a question about math, or if we could scroll back up to English. I have a quick question.
Sounds like.
Sorry, I just had a quick question, really quick clarifying question. You said that this makes it more aligned with DESI's goals. What specifically wasn't there before?
Statistics, geometry, and probability. Right. So those are all contents that's in the state standards, both in 7th grade and 8th grade. And those are also materials that's on the MCAS. And so our students in the previous years goes into those tests, I wouldn't say at a disadvantage, but they just hasn't been really exposed to those materials. And so what happens is prior to the MCAS, the 7th grade, 8th grade teachers are spending a lot of time just cramming a lot of content in there. Right. And so we still do very well. Students do very well, but we also don't feel like, we're doing the student justice by not teaching those materials to the level that we believe they should be learning. And most importantly, when they head on to the high school, and again, some of our top students, which many of them will figure out on their own. All right, so they were sequenced into the STAT courses at the high school well, but we just don't feel like we does enough work to get them ready for the STAT courses.
Great, thank you so much.
Madam Chair, can I just step in for quick second.
Yes.
Mr. Lin, can you clarify? Because I think it may be a little confusing visually. What you're saying is that the Mass 7A and the green highlighted names are not what we're recommending. We're going to stay with the ones that are crossed out.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So
Okay.
that draft was more about us, kind of working through
Okay.
whether we want to change the titles or not. So in retrospect, what I sent you, Dr. Hackett, I should have taken out the green highlighted part.
Nope.
Because, at the end, we
You know what?
decided not to do that.
Look at this. Look at this happening right here in front of you. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay.
Marin.
Well, yes. Well, you take care of that.
That's actually
that
me
magic.
this time.
Yes, that bit of magic.
Pretty soon I have my tongue out.
Miss Bergstrom, would you like to ask your question at ELA?
I would. If somebody could scroll back up, and I'm sorry, Dr. Hackett, you'll have to stop your audio. Wait, stop right there. So I have a question because this has come up before, and I thought that in conversation here with Dr. Alanema and Ms. Plasky, that we were no longer requiring a recommendation for any course for a student to take a course at the high school, that we would recommend students for certain courses, but this says that grade 9 honors, that it's required for admittance into this course in the last line on this page. And I thought in terms of equity and being able to offer programs to students who felt like they were ready for them, that we were not requiring a teacher recommendation that counts for students' interest in subject matter, previous achievement, and our willingness to engage in it is required. I thought it was recommended. I just want to make sure that families don't run into this issue in spring if they decide that their child's ready for 9th grade honors English, that it is open to them whether their teacher, obviously it's a conversation and that's why it's a recommendation, but.
Yeah, so I'll jump in here because it ties more to the high school piece beyond like what James deals with at the
Yep, that's
middle
why
school.
I
So the decision was made at the high school that these it stays in place what's happening now. But just to clarify, and you're right, we could probably tweak the phrasing on that because there is an appeals process that the teacher makes the recommendation, and if there isn't an appeal that comes from the family, from the student, then that's where they're like automatically placed at the high school in the master schedule. But when they do an appeal, then there's a discussion with Ms. Plasky and the teachers about changing that placement. So if your thinking was that students would automatically be able to do that, that is not the process that's happening. They still need to do the appeals process for it.
Maybe at least I would love to see it just a recommendation. I understand that's a whole other conversation for a different day, but maybe at least, Dr. Allen, if we could clarify that an appeals process is possible, so people don't feel like they're shut out completely if their teacher hasn't recommended them.
Yeah, I think that's a great addition. James, could you just, insert that in and just, that is the process for everything. So you're right, Michelle, it's like such a bigger conversation that, I think we would all need to get on the same page with the process in terms of what levels students go into when they go into the high school, but also, as they progress through the high school.
Yeah, I just noticed it doesn't even align with middle school math. Middle school math is a recommendation, and they say, well, you can do extra coursework over the summer if you want to be ready for it, and yet you can't make the same choice in an English class. So
it is all the same process. It's exactly the same, but you're right, the wording is not the same on this. So we need to align that so it's the same. But there is, for every subject area, it's an appeals process for a level.
That would be good to make clear to students.
Yep.
Thank you so much. Because the first time you go through it, you don't know. By the time your second or third child does, you're really familiar. But just for in terms of if we tell them once, we tell them again, we tell them again, it would be
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it might be good even that we insert a section that just talks about that piece. Like we could maybe say something for like James, like maybe in more to the front, like in the overview part, like
Yep.
to, 8th grade families, so they understand that as they're moving.
Yep. No, we can do that because that's always communicated to the 8th grade family. So we'll just use the same language in the pod.
Cut and
Yep.
paste from your
Perfect.
emails.
That would be great. That would be great. And it will give you guys a place to point them to too.
That's
They
right.
still like to ask us questions.
So it sounds as if this document still needs a little bit of cleaning up before we proceed to approving it, unless the committee feels differently.
I guess my question would be, understanding that this is not the final draft that goes out. And with the understanding, as Mr. Lynn explained, that the names aren't changing. If the committee is comfortable with what's been discussed, you're certainly welcome to approve it tonight. And as I said at the onset, if you want more time with it, certainly you should take it, and we could bring it back on the 28th as long as you make sure that you either reach out to Dr. Allen or Mr. Lynn if you have additional questions.
So are we required to come back to this on the first reading policy?
You're not required to. You can do this because this is not budgetary. There's no real policy change. This is really just a descriptive change of what we're doing to match the courses program of studies language to what we're actually doing. But you're welcome to. It's not critical that you approve it tonight either.
I guess I personally would like to see just a slightly more cleaned up copy, just to understand all the changes and the colors or
Agreed. I would love to see it in its final form, and then we can vote on it. That would be great.
Not a
But
problem.
hopefully it'll be a really quick vote at that time. We can
I
just
think so.
make the motion and approve it.
We will bring it back.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Lynn.
Thank you.
Thank you,
for
Mr.
coming on
Lynn. We
to
appreciate it.
so late in the evening, Mr. Lynn.
That's
care.
right.
Thanks. Bye.
You too. So in my haste, I think I jumped over the superintendent and chair and student remarks. I think, let's see. Okay.
Well,
It's just
we lost
checking out.
Michaela.
I know
She was here.
We
I was
lost
thinking
Michaela
that,
and
but I didn't want to say it.
and your superintendent is all set at this point.
Okay. Let me just look here. Let's see. It's just a couple of quick comments. It's a busy spring. We're heading in towards town meeting. April vacation is just around the corner. And then let me just see. Just a quick shout out to we're just recognizing some of our teachers, Maggie Jackson and Miss Lamson, who have been recognized as women in STEM. Also, some of our students have been recognized as well. So it's just some exciting stuff in our school community. And with that, let me just find my other document. Let's see. We have our anticipated future agenda items, which include the Lynch Project Facilities Master Plan, the Bullying Prevention and Response Plan, and some information on the middle school schedule working group. We'll also be bringing back the 25-26 calendar approval. We have the food service contract coming to us at our next meeting.
And the McCall program
the McCall program of studies.
Dr. Hackett, is this the time of year where we need to add the required vote on open enrollment, and that's enrollment from students outside the district, not our own
Yeah, so we did post we have
Mhm.
posted for May 22nd for a public hearing
Okay,
on, school choice.
just wasn't on.
Yes, it should, yeah, no, we should probably have added that. It's my oversight.
No worries, just
Oh,
checking.
yes. I think that's sitting on the draft school committee meeting date calendar.
It
So,
is.
so in a
And I
few
would-
different places.
I also just wanted to say really quickly for the next meetings, which is agenda item number 7 here. So
Mhm.
both of those are going to be pre-town meeting. And so just given the fact, I mean, I think it's somewhat unusual for us to have an item that actually needs to be taken into those that's more public, like the calendar or the program of studies for McCall. So just to make a note that those will probably not be recorded by WinCam. But we will make sure to communicate out those decisions that are taken in the event they're not publicly available on WinCam.
And hopefully now that we voted those other calendar dates, people will, that will be enough for people so far.
Yeah,
That's right.
that's why I
A
wanted.
source of relief.
I appreciated our ability to do that tonight because I definitely have had a fair number of questions around that. So
For sure.
is
All
it
right.
would the
Then
chair
we have
accept a
our,
motion?
yes, we've already went through our next meetings and now we are going into executive session. The purpose 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining. As the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the committee.
So I would be happy to move that we move into executive session and adjourn directly from executive session without coming back.
Yes. Do we have a second?
Second.
And then a roll call vote. Mr. Hopcroft,
Aye.
Ms. Bergstrom,
Aye.
Ms. Minyarji,
Aye.
and Dr. Matthews.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, and we will move on to executive session.
Thank you to WinCam. Have a good night, everybody.
Yes. Thank you, WinCam.
You'll
Thank
be
you to the
getting a link
community.
from Andrew, just so you know.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll take a look for it.